Hello, scholars. It is Monday, day one of our official distance learning after spring break. And some of you maybe have already seen my grammar video, and you know that I miss you guys, and it's going to be really weird not being able to, work with you face to face, but we're going to do what we can over video chat, and I hope this kind of works. We're actually going to pop back to Julius Caesar. And so I know we took a break for poetry. We're going to pop back to Julius Caesar, kind of finish up that unit with our study guide, and then we're going to take our test at the end of this week. But don't worry, you're going to have a lot of things that are going to help you out to make sure that you can be successful on it. After that, we're going to go back to poetry for a little bit before we start reading our last book. But that's a conversation for later. Right now, I want to, kind of get you back in the mindset of Julius Caesar again, because your homework tonight is to actually start filling out our study guide for that. You'll see that I broke up our study guide over 2 days. So Monday and Tuesday, you'll be doing the study guide. And then actually Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I broke up the test into 3 days. So you actually don't need to think, oh my gosh, I need to sit down and do this whole test at one time. You can break it up into small chunks. It'll be okay. Now for the study guide, you can use whatever you have. You can use your reading guides, you can use any of your notes, you can use your Julius Caesar book, and you can use any of those warm-ups that we did, the warm-ups that actually had like information on them. You can use those too. So any resource you have to help you with the study guide, please use it. And this is also something if you want to communicate with your classmates, like, hey, I'm not really sure about this one, what did you get for it? Please do that. And if you still can't figure it out, then absolutely communicate with me and I'll try to answer your questions as best as possible. But to kind of get the ball rolling on that, we're going to do some notes, some reminders, a refresher, if you will, about some of the things we talked about in Julius Caesar. And one of the things we're not going to do is I'm going to wait until tomorrow to give you some of the answers to the study guide. So I want you to try to figure it out on your own, but then I'm going to actually go through it tomorrow. So you don't need to freak out, but I also want you to see if you can do it. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to kind of go through a few of those literary terms that we talked about and we focused on during our time with Julius Caesar. So, sharing the screen. We are here. And now we are sharing the screen. So, I'm going to pop that into slideshow. And these are a couple of our things that we are doing, literary terms. The first one is the idea of word connotation, which is the feeling that's associated or behind a word. This is from your Julius Caesar notes, those notes we took at the beginning of the unit. And that could be positive, negative, it could be a strong word or a weak word. So we use the example of curious versus nosy. And we had that little chart where we had maybe a positive and a negative word for a dog. And so we kind of had a little bit of fun with that. So if you're not really sure about word connotation, double check your Julius Caesar notes. The next one is an aside. Now, remember, an aside is similar but not the same to a soliloquy. And an aside is when a character is speaking to themselves or to the audience. We assume this speech is not heard by anybody else. And that you actually will see in your Julius Caesar book, it'll say aside. And this, my favorite aside in the whole play is one of the times when a character is saying, yeah, I'll be right by your side. And then he says to the audience, you're going to wish I had been farther away because he's going to stab him. So look for the word actually aside, and we know that that is when they're speaking to themselves or the audience. It's just an aside. Then the other one that's a little different to that is a soliloquy or a monologue. Now a monologue, remember mono meaning one, logos meaning speech, so it's one person speaking. And the way you know it's a monologue is it's a single character on stage and they're thinking out loud. That is, we do this because in plays we don't have a narrator who's telling us how the character is feeling or what they're thinking. And so this is the way that we in the audience can know what is going on in the character's brain. And the number one monologue we have is that one about Brutus, when he is in his orchard, when he's in his garden, and he's trying to decide, do I want to be a part of this conspiracy? Do I want to, do I want to join Cassius and kill Julius Caesar? So he goes in depth about his thoughts on that. The last one we have on this slide is just that idea of a tragedy. So Shakespeare wrote two kinds of plays, well, 2 and 3, but two primary kinds of plays. One are comedies, where everybody is happy and they get married at the end. And the other one is a tragedy. And it's a very serious play having an unhappy ending. I think I have a typo. I think that says plan when it should be play. Excuse my typo. We all make mistakes. And when it says usually having an unhappy ending, that unhappy ending is most of the characters end up dying. It's just the way it goes. So remember, Julius Caesar is a tragedy, and we have most of our main characters who do die at the end. All right, we have one more slide of this, and then I'm going to give you some of our plot elements in a moment. First one is verbal irony. Miss Doyle uses verbal irony all the time. It's when you say verbally out loud the opposite of what you mean. Like, thank you so much for sitting down and being quiet, if a student is standing up and being loud. So it's when you actually say out loud, when somebody uses their words to say the opposite of what they mean. But we also have my favorite, which is dramatic irony. And Julius Caesar is full of dramatic irony, right? That occurs when the audience, people watching, know something that the characters on the stage do not know. So we know when the play starts that Julius Caesar's going to die. So we, from the beginning, know that he's going to die. There are a lot of little instances of this, such as when Decius comes and picks up Julius Caesar to bring him to the Capitol, and he convinces him, and he's all happy, and like, hey, friend, I'm so excited to be with you, friend. And we know that Decius is actually not his friend. Decius is part of the conspiracy. So the dramatic irony is all over the place in Julius Caesar. We have foreshadowing, and some of you will be like, oh, that's and there's a specific character that has a lot of foreshadowing. This character has a line that gives a hint or a clue to future events. And it's right away in the first act. He says, beware the Ides of March to Julius Caesar. I want to know if you can figure out what that character's name is. And it hints that something bad is going to happen. There's a lot of other examples of foreshadowing, but I just wanted to remind you about this term. Finally, we did this in our Julius Caesar essays, which, by the way, have been awesome. We're still figuring out how we're doing grades, so I haven't put those in the grade book yet, but I've been really, really impressed with all of your Did Julius Caesar Deserve to Die? Those were great. Your thesis statement, the sentence that states the main idea or argument of an essay. So just wanted to touch on that. Last little bit we're going to do is our elements of fiction. This is remember, way back in the beginning of the year, we talked about those 6 elements of fiction. We're only going to cover 5 right now, but these are what occurs in every fiction story. And the first is our setting, and we know this. What is our setting for Julius Caesar? It is in ancient Rome. And then toward the end of the play, we didn't get to talk about this as much, but Julius Caesar's ghost says, I'll meet you at Philippi. That's the other area. That's where Act 4 and Act 5 primarily take place. It's the battlefield. But most of the setting is ancient Rome. We do go to a couple different places within ancient Rome, but yeah, that's our primary setting. The characters, there were a lot of characters. We know that. We didn't get a chance to discuss this, which makes me really sad, but our protagonist in this play is Brutus. He's the one we see the most of. We hear his thoughts the most, and he's the one who is the most dynamic, who like changes and grows and learns throughout the play, which then it kind of makes, I know this is weird, Caesar and Antony to be our antagonists, the people who are opposing our protagonist Brutus. And I know that some students are going to email me and have really big questions or going to, argue against that. I'd love to hear it, but that's primarily well established, and you can still argue it, but that Brutus is our protagonist and that Caesar and Antony are the antagonists. There is a lot of internal conflict that happens with Brutus, though, internal conflict. So it's not always him struggling against another person. Sometimes it's him struggling with himself. The conflict is that the conspirators plan to kill Julius Caesar, but then after this happens, Antony and Octavius seek revenge. And so that would be, it's primarily a person versus person conflict. The point of view, because it's a play, is all first person. It's all first person because everybody's talking. They're saying, I am doing this, I am doing that. They don't say, Brutus shall walk out the door. No, he says I. So it's first person, all dialogue. And this also could be, you could have a lot of different themes here. But remember, a theme is like a primary message that is bigger than just the play. And so too much ambition can lead to your downfall. So Caesar was too ambitious. Remember, he was like, I'm like the Titan. He didn't say I'm like the Titanic. We likened him to the Titanic, though, that he is unsinkable. And then what happens? He sunk. He had too much ambition. He wanted to rise too high. He said he was like the Northern Star. But all of that, all of the fact that he was such an ambitious character, such an ambitious man, led to his downfall. The last bit we're going to talk about, because you're going to have to do this tonight, is plot diagram. Don't forget about your plot diagram. That's on the second page that you have tonight. I want you to try to figure out what these stops are on our plot diagram. So in your homework for tonight, there's going to be a character list, and there's going to be some of our vocabulary. So remember some of our movements, like banished, point him to the door, or consent. So using your reading guides, you can be filling this out. And then there is on the whole back page a plot diagram, or some of you will have a different version of that. So I want you to try to fill that out as best you can. You can ask questions of me. And tomorrow, our video for tomorrow, we're going to answer some of those questions for this and lead into tomorrow's homework. Now, tomorrow's homework is going to be part of what we've already gone over today as well. So we'll see how this goes. And I really miss you guys. It's going to be very difficult to not be able to, you know, teach you in the classroom, but we'll do what we can and make lemons out of lemonade. So, nope, make it lemonade out of lemons. I did that yesterday too. I messed it up. Oh well. Okay. Look forward to hearing back from you guys and seeing you online in Google Classroom. Okay. Bye.